For over 1,000 years, one currency has dominated, influenced, and shaped the world economy. It's seen empires rise and fall, survived wars, and defined an era of global trade. I'm talking about the British pound sterling, one of the oldest currencies still in use today. But how did this legendary currency climb to the top? And what led to its dramatic decline from global dominance? Let's dive into the incredible story of the rise and fall of the pound. Our story begins way back in Anglo-Saxon England. Around the year 775, King Offa of Mercia introduced a silver coin called the penny. 240 of these pennies were minted from 1 pound of silver, creating a unit of account known as the pound of sterling silver. This is where the name pound sterling comes from. For centuries, the pound was literally worth its weight in silver, a tangible measure of value that built trust and stability. As England grew into the powerful British Empire, the pound's influence grew with it. The Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries was a game changer. Britain became the workshop of the world, exporting goods across the globe. And how was everything paid for? You guessed it, in pounds. This created immense international demand for the currency. The real golden age for the pound began in 1816 when Britain officially adopted the gold standard. This meant you could, in theory, walk into the Bank of England and exchange your pound notes for a fixed amount of solid gold. This move anchored the pound's value to the most trusted asset in the world. London became the undisputed financial capital of the globe. International contracts were written in pounds. Countries held their foreign reserves in pounds, and nearly half of all world trade was conducted using sterling. For a glorious century, the pound was king, the undisputed global reserve currency. It was as good as gold. But as the 20th century dawned, the cracks began to show. The first major blow was World War I. The cost of the war was astronomical. Britain had to borrow heavily and print more money, which weakened the pound's value. To finance the war effort, the country was forced to abandon the gold standard in 1914. It was a necessary move, but it severed the pound's direct link to gold, shaking international confidence. After the war, Britain was determined to restore the pound to its former glory. In 1925, Winston Churchill, then Chancellor of the Exchequer, made the fateful decision to return to the gold standard at the old pre-war exchange rate. On the surface, it seemed like a bold move to restore British prestige. But in reality, the British economy was much weaker than before the war. This new exchange rate made British exports incredibly expensive and uncompetitive on the world market. The result was economic pain, high unemployment, and social unrest, culminating in the 1926 general strike. The return to gold was a disaster, and Britain was forced to abandon it again in 1931 during the Great Depression. The pound's reputation was severely damaged. Then came World War II, the final nail in the coffin for the pound's global dominance. The war left Britain victorious, but financially devastated. The country was deeply in debt, particularly to the United States. Its industrial base was battered, and its empire was beginning to crumble. The world was changing, and a new economic superpower was rising across the Atlantic. The pivotal moment came in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference. This meeting of allied nations established a new global economic order for the post-war world. A new system was created where currencies would be pegged not to the pound, but to the US dollar, and the dollar, in turn, was convertible to gold. The US, with its massive gold reserves and unscathed industrial might, was now the world's economic leader. The era of the US dollar had begun. For the pound, the post-war years were a period of managed decline. A series of economic crises, known as sterling crisis, plagued the country. In 1949, the government was forced to devalue the pound against the dollar by a staggering 30%. Imagine your savings losing nearly a third of their international value overnight. Another major devaluation followed in 1967. The message was clear. The pound was no longer the strong, stable currency it once was. The final symbolic blow came with the Suez Crisis of 1956. Failed military intervention exposed Britain as diminished power on the world stage and triggered a massive run on the pound as investors fled the currency. In the decades that followed, the pound found a new, more modest role. The UK's entry into the European Economic Community in 1973 tied its economic fate more closely to Europe. The pound fluctuated, facing challenges like the high inflation of the 1970s and the infamous Black Wednesday in 1992, when the UK was forced out of the European exchange rate mechanism. More recently, the 2008 financial crisis and the 2016 Brexit vote have brought new waves of volatility. Brexit, in particular, caused a sharp drop in the pound's value as markets reacted to the uncertainty of the UK's future outside the European Union. So, where does the pound stand today? It's no longer the world's dominant currency, a title firmly held by the US dollar, with the euro and Chinese yuan also playing major roles. However, the pound is still one of the world's most traded currencies. London remains a leading global financial center, and the pound's long history gives it a certain prestige and resilience that few other currencies can match. The story of the British pound is more than just economics. It's a story of empire, innovation, devastating wars, and a changing world order. From its humble silver beginnings to its golden age of global dominance and its subsequent fall, the pound's journey mirrors the history of Britain itself. It's a powerful reminder that in the world of global finance, nothing is permanent, and the tides of economic power are always shifting. What do you think is next for the pound? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey through economic history, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos. See you next time.